The Scouring of the Shire is probably one of the most misunderstood moments in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings trilogy. Many say that it is an anticlimactic chapter right after the best stuff has already happened. It certainly couldn't fit into the already long runtime for the Peter Jackson films, and some people see it as just nothing more than a fun speed bump right before the emotional ending. Others might be a little bit more cynical and say that it is some veiled wish fulfillment on Tolkien's part. True, many fans of the books really do enjoy the chapter, The Scouring of the Shire, and wish that it was included in the movies, but again, do they understand the singular chapter's overall significance in Tolkien's masterpiece? Well, that is what I want to dive into today. Hi everyone, Lars here from Camille's Harem, not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. This is my final installment in the Defending Tolkien miniseries. In an attempt to pump some positivity out there into the internet, I've been taking a look at the contributions Tolkien brought to writing fiction with his legendarium. And one of his greatest contributions is the beautiful and meaningful penultimate chapter in The Return of the King, The Scouring of the Shire. Now, this chapter was not adapted for the films based on time constraints, and the fear Peter Jackson had that the audience would feel that a smaller battle would detract from the more grand finale when the ring is destroyed. However, they did shoot scenes just in case they would have included this chapter in the end product. And we do actually get to see this footage used when Frodo peers into Galadriel's mirror. For those who do not know what this chapter even is, however, let's go over the major events such as they are in The Return of the King. First, as the hobbits return to the Shire after the War of the Ring, they are accompanied by Gandalf along with many of the high elven lords who attended Aragorn's crowning and wedding to Arwen. And so it is that Galadriel, Elrond, and Celeborn are there when they meet Saruman, who was wandering the wilderness with Grima Wormtongue. The two fled Orthanc because they had ran out of food and they didn't want to starve to death. The White Council doesn't take them prisoner, hoping that somewhere out there in the world, even though they are capable of some mischief yet, they might finally learn from their evil deeds and try to repent and turn their lives around. Well, Saruman has anything but turning a new leaf on his mind. He takes a fast way through the wilderness to arrive at the Shire before the hobbits do. He had already established a line of trade and communication with the Shire via Lotho Sackville Baggins, importing tobacco and other goods to keep himself and his orc chieftains well fed within Isengard. Lotho had even begun importing some of Saruman's own men and technology into the Shire to increase production and to secure greater trade. Now, the deposed wizard intended to use these connections to destroy the Shire and get his revenge on the hobbits for their crucial roles in destroying the One Ring and upending all his evil and selfish designs. Well, Frodo and his friends remain blissfully unaware that any of this is going on, and they enjoy a quiet rest in Rivendell, where Frodo meets with Bilbo and takes in the beauty of the last home. However, already in his heart, Frodo begins to realize that he will not stay on Middle-earth. Finally, leaving with Gandalf for the Shire, the White Wizard takes his leave and says that he will go and have a long chat with Tom Bombadil, such as he hasn't had in a very, very long time. But he warns the hobbits that they must hurry or they will be shut out of the Shire after nightfall. A little perturbed, the hobbits don't want to really take him at his word, but sure enough, they find a spiked iron gate barring their way back into the Four Farthings. They call for the guardhouse to open the gate, but the hobbit guards tell them to read the rules and clear off until morning. Well, Merry and Pippin have had enough of this disrespect, and they've had enough of standing out in the rain, so they climb the gate, freaking out the band of hobbits. And remember, at this time, Merry and Pippin have drunk the Entdrots and have grown in size. The hubbub rouses a human guard who comes out raging that it's nighttime, and it turns out to be none other than the ruffian Bill Ferny. This man who had taken advantage of Aragorn in the book The Fellowship of the Ring and sold him a sickly pony. Like all cowardly ruffians, however, he freaks out when he sees the armed, heroic hobbits, and Merry demands the keys to the gate and he tells Bill to leave. Bill is subsequently booted in the butt by his old pony. Frodo and his friends quickly learn that the Shire has been taken over by a character called the Chief, who is revealed to be Lotho, his cousin. And another dangerous character has now entered the mix named Sharky. They are forcing the hobbits to work hard, stealing the surplus of food, destroying homes, cutting down the forests, polluting the rivers, and basically trying to turn the Shire into a desert. Frodo resolves to confront Lotho and liberate Hobbiton. As the friends embark on their final quest, they are waylaid by a gang of sheriffs. But the four hobbits are just so masterful and intimidating that the sheriffs can't even arrest them, but instead act as an escort towards Hobbiton. But this leads the heroes to confront then their first band of ruffians who are there to pick up the hobbits en route to Hobbiton. However, this band doesn't really put up much of a fight when Pippin threatens to murder them if they don't leave the Shire. They bolt and gather an even larger gang to capture Frodo and kill the others. Merry and Pippin put up the call for the Shire to mobilize. The fearful and repressed hobbits come pouring out of their hiding places to aid the friends. Merry constructs a trap alongside with Farmer Cotton's help, and they deal with the first gang by just simply killing their leader and forcing the others to surrender. So things are going really well for the hobbits. But they are followed up by a band of more than 100 half-orcs who come with the sole purpose of slaughtering the hobbits. A massive brawl ensues which leads to many hobbits getting injured and killed, but the invaders are all either killed or captured themselves, leaving the way open to Hobbiton. Upon arriving at Bag End, Frodo finds his old hole abandoned and disheveled. Lotho is missing, but Saruman is there, refreshed and well-fed. He reveals his simple plan for revenge and says that he will set the Shire's pains against his own as he wanders the wilds once again. Frodo orders that Saruman be not killed, even as the wizard attempts to use the power of his voice to overcome the hobbits. Saruman realizes that Frodo, through this act of mercy, has robbed him of his revenge as well. The ring-bearer has no desire for his own revenge, but seeks mercy, showing that he is indeed as one of the wise as Saruman once was. Saruman leaves, embittered, dragging Wormtongue in his wake. Frodo tries to offer the hand of mercy to Wormtongue, offering him a chance to rest and recuperate before leaving, and a chance to be free of Saruman forever. It is then that Saruman reveals that Wormtongue murdered, and very likely ate, Lotho Sackville Baggins. The treacherous counselor attacks the wizard and slits his throat before being shot dead by 3 hobbit archers. The spirit of Saruman then rises from his corpse and looks to the west before a wind carries him away forever. The Shire is saved, but dreadfully scarred. However, thanks to Galadriel's gift for Sam, a box of precious white sand and a silver seed, Sam Gamgee manages to save the Shire and not only restore its former beauty, but surpass it. He is married to Rosie Cotton, and the 4 friends are hailed as heroes. It is a wonderful part of the story, but as you can see, that is a lot to cover. It would have been a lot to put into the movies, so that's why it wasn't added to the Peter Jackson film adaptation. However, there is a lot of meaning for Tolkien himself wrapped up in the chapter that we must analyze. First, this chapter reveals something profound about Tolkien's masterpiece. While battles must sometimes be waged in order for good to triumph over evil, the greatest victory is one where mercy and goodness stands up to wickedness and rejects it without having to resort to bloodshed. Note that Saruman realizes that his vengeance was robbed from him through mercy. It doesn't matter how much damage is done in the world. Simple acts of goodness defy that destruction and set others on a path towards healing. Frodo could have killed Saruman easily, and he would have been justified in doing so. But after wearing the One Ring and experiencing true evil for so long, Frodo understands that one violent act, no matter how justifiable, does not in itself heal an evil deed. Only by countering the way Sauron saw the world and his own grievances can those on the side of good truly triumph, by ending the cycle of hatred and destruction. Secondly, the Scouring of the Shire is the completion of the hero's journey. All 4 hobbits have left home, acquired new powers and knowledge, and they use that upon returning home to the Shire to become something better. And they make their homes better, restoring the cycle to the way it should be. Boom! Classic hero's journey completed. However, Tolkien goes a step further. While Sam, Merry, and Pippin get to enjoy the fulfillment of the hero's journey, Frodo must leave Middle-earth shortly afterwards. In a way, Tolkien slightly subverts this ancient archetype of storytelling, and I'll get into why he does that in a moment. Because thirdly, I must address the how. The how of why the Scouring the Shire resolves so many of the loose threads left from the first book regarding things like Frodo's family, politics within the Shire, Sam's rivalry with Ted Sandyman, and the mysteries of where all the goods were disappearing to, as well as how on earth Isengard had Hobbit tobacco leaf. Tolkien did not write this chapter as an afterthought or because he needed a longer page count. No, it was something that he had planned from the beginning. It was the final test for the hobbits, a chance for them to prove how they had grown thanks to the quest and prove themselves as real heroes to their own people. And in a way, an oft-overlooked quality of a true hero is what they do after the main crisis has been dealt with, and when things become personal. So really, there's a whole lot getting wrapped up in this one chapter alone. It's a chapter that deals with a lot. Now, the final and more personal meaning for Tolkien to write the Scouring the Shire, and what I was going to get to, is how he uses this chapter to right a deeply grievous personal wrong. The old British countryside that he loved so dearly was marred by industrialization. Furthermore, his closest friends, Rob Gilson and Joffrey Smith, were killed in World War I. Tolkien said that he hated allegory in all its forms, but we find a remarkable amount of personal history in this chapter. Almost like fan fiction for his own life, we could say. 4 friends who go on their way to the Great War, but in Tolkien's retelling, all of them get to come home. Their friendship is renewed and stronger than ever before, and these heroes are empowered and ready to save their homelands. And in Tolkien's retelling of history, the evils of industrialism are put aside and a gorgeous countryside is redeemed. I contend that for Tolkien, the Scouring of the Shire and its subsequent events were his way of having that happy ending that eluded him in real life. And from that interpretation, this chapter isn't even self-indulgent either, because there are real stakes and losses, and again, Frodo finds no peace in the Shire due to the wounds that he received on the quest, the Witch King's blade and Shelob's stinger. As a result, he leaves for Valinor with the ending of the Third Age. The fairy tale ends and the Age of Men with all its trials and tribulations begins. A bittersweet ending to the tale and a poignant opening to our own story. It would have been so easy for Tolkien to cap it all off with, and they lived happily ever after, the end. But Tolkien knew better. His knowledge of epic fantasy and ancient poetry, and his time in World War II, and the world in which he lived opened his eyes to the reality. So the Scouring of the Shire is partly settling the score for Tolkien, creating that happy ending that he always wanted, but not indulging in it, because that would be an affront to the losses and sacrifices endured by everyone in his life. Instead, he crafted an ending where good wins, but at a cost, because that is the way the world works, and heroes are those who are willing to bear that price, from the highest elven lords and wizards to the lowliest hobbits of the obscure Shire. Now, I realize I've covered quite a bit and grown a little bit emotional along the way, but I hope that my breakdown and analysis of the Scouring of the Shire has provided some new insights into Tolkien and his works, and perhaps it might inspire you to dive back into the books or to read them for the first time if you haven't done so, because there is just so much there in the Lord of the Rings to explore. But I also have to address what this sole chapter can teach novice authors. Number 1, obviously, don't engage in self-indulgent fanfiction writing for your own life. But seriously, here is a crucial bit of advice. Don't be afraid to take time after your climax to write up and wrap up all the necessary loose ends and provide further character development. There's nothing that says that everything must end with a final battle, or true love's first kiss, or that the hero's returning home is the end to the story. Tolkien expertly uses the Return of the King's long falling action to reaffirm character arcs, provide some great thematic insights, conclude things that you might not have even thought were important, and still give us a little bit of action to keep the pacing from dragging on too long and too far. Take your time to give all your main characters satisfactory endings. That will really be a big reward to your readers who have spent all this time with them. Make sure to tie up all those loose ends, and sometimes, this is important, sometimes the most powerful moments are the quiet ones. The ending to The Return of the King is so powerful and beautiful. I scarcely read or watch it without growing emotional. It has such an impact on its characters and the audience who have been along for this long journey. None of us might be able to reach the same heights as Tolkien's Legendarium, but each and every one of you authors out there are equally capable of writing powerful, meaningful endings. And it really comes down to utilizing the falling action within your story. Well, that will do it for this video. The next time I address Tolkien's works, it will be my thoughts regarding the upcoming Rings of Power series. Oh boy, strap yourselves in for that one because it's going to be a crazy ride. In the meantime, if you're looking for more writing advice, please check out our other videos here and our podcast, Camille's Harem, found on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, the works. We have writing exercises for you over at our Pinterest page, and we would love for you to join our growing community of novice authors. Links for all of that and more are down in the description below. Thank you for joining us on this adventure that we call writing, and until the next video, y'all, let's put some positivity out there into the world. What matters most is what we do with the time that is given to us. And tschüss.